Hey there, I'm Chase Hansen, your DFW Realtor, here today for a market update for the Dallas-Fort Worth and North Texas real estate market as we move into November of 2022. Now, if you've paid any attention at all to real estate news stories, tried to buy or sell a house, or if you've just talked to a realtor at all this year, you know that this has been a wild ride of a year for real estate. It's actually kind of funny in retrospect because a year ago and even into the summer, everyone was freaking out and saying that the real estate market needed to cool off, that if it didn't cool off, it would be the end of the world. Then summer ended, the market did cool off, and people freaked out like it was the end of the world. Now, I know there's other factors in the mix there, and I can't control what the Federal Reserve does or doesn't do, but my goal with these updates has been twofold. And as the market continues to shift and change and be the fun roller coaster ride that it has been, I think those two goals are more important than ever as tools for you to have in your hands as a current or future home buyer or seller. So here's the two goals that I've had with my monthly updates. One, my first goal with these updates has been to give people a sense of what the current state of the real estate market is. Now, I know the average person buying or selling a home is not well informed about the actual state of the market. If you bought a house 2 years ago or 5 years ago or 10 years ago, those are all very different real estate markets from one another and very different markets from what it's like today. So I want to give people a real-time sense of what it's actually like. Not shaped by clickbait, talking points, but by the actual experience of helping people buy and sell houses. So I look at my clients and their recent experience, talk to my team and people in my office about what they're seeing, and compare that with broader trends that we're seeing in the market and the numbers. So that's my first goal, and why our first segment has been news on the ground, so you can know what things are like out there and understand a bit of how things are moving. So two, my second goal with these updates has been to provide people with statistics and facts and real information on how the real estate market works. What trends have been happening and changing, why those things matter for a consumer, a normal person buying or selling a house. I think my clients are better served when they have real information to consider. And my goal in general as a realtor is not to convince someone who doesn't want to move that they should move. That's shady, that's self-serving, not serving others, not how I want to do business. My goal, rather, is to help people who are thinking about moving make the right decision for them by providing a fuller insight into the market. Now, I think understanding current stats, the history of the real estate market, and the visible trends of where things are likely to go are all helpful to make wise and confident decisions as a consumer. Because what matters when you're moving is what works for you. Not what angry people on Facebook are saying, not what news sites who make more money if their doomsday stories get shared are saying. If you have a motivation to move, so whether you're just ready for a change or if there's something in life that's spurring that on, and if the numbers work for you to afford your payments and feel okay about moving forward, if the motivation right and the money is right, then it doesn't matter if people are angry on the internet about interest rates or what Congress is or isn't doing about different things. What matters is that you're making moves for your family and your future because the market moves in cycles. We've been through recessions before and they pass. Nothing fundamental has changed about the real estate market and how supply and demand works. I want my clients to be informed and able to make safe and confident decisions. And so I spend my time researching to help provide that as a resource for you. So those two goals are what shape the two sections that we're about to jump into for this update. The news on the ground and Nerd Corner. If you've listened to previous episodes, you may notice I've dropped the third section of pro tips, and that's because I've decided that people will be better served if they can search for that info separately. So I will be releasing pro tip content in separate videos on my YouTube channel. You can find the most recent one about how home inspections work already up now. The channel is Chase Hansen, DFW Realtor. And while we're at it, if you're not already subscribed, you should go ahead and do that. You might be missing out on great content like that as well as local DFW highlights. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel. And if you like what I'm doing here, make sure to give this video a like and share it with friends. So that was a longer intro than usual, but I wanted you to know why I'm focusing these updates on the things that I am and to share a bit of my heart in thinking about this content. But without further ado, let's get into the update. It's time for the news on the ground. This is the part of the update where I share what it's like in the real estate market right now for the average buyer or seller. So the 10,000 foot view is that the market has continued its fall trend of cooling off and calming down. But it has not crashed the way that a lot of people thought it would, and it hasn't crashed the way that the Federal Reserve seemed to think it would. But if you've been following along with my updates the last couple of months, you'll remember that I haven't been on team market crash. I have not been predicting real estate doom. I've been expecting and telling my people that I expect a real cool down, probably a year of slower, if any, price growth, but not a major market crash where we see prices truly drop year over year or people defaulting on loans due to the real estate market conditions. And the reason I've held to that position, and especially in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, is a combination of two big factors. First, we have been experiencing a long-term major inventory shortage. So we don't have enough houses for the number of people who live here and are moving here. That leads to price stability and a steady level of demand across price points because no one is building enough houses, and if anything, the builders have slowed down the last 2 months. Second, people living in houses right now have fixed rate mortgages, and a lot of them have fixed rate mortgages at great competitive rates. So there's not going to be an avalanche of foreclosures and homes going on the market like there was in 2008 because the types of risky mortgage loans that led to that market crash are just not allowed anymore. Now that doesn't mean home prices are what they were in June, July right at this moment. I'll talk a lot more detail about what's happening with home prices right now in the statistics section, since that's something really interesting that's going on there and it might not be what you think, so stay tuned for that. So what's it like for the average home buyer right now? I actually just helped some of my best friends close on a house a little over a week ago. Our team has been running all over the Metroplex showing houses. We've had several buyers get under contract this last month. For buyers, you're seeing more negotiating power. I'm telling people to ask for that home warranty. If the price is too high, make an offer at a reasonable price and see what they say. Houses are sitting on the market a little longer, and sellers that are more motivated will be more willing to negotiate. Now, that doesn't mean that you can just name your price at a random number. Like, look at the comps and see what's fair. But the average house in DFW is selling for about 98% of the original listing price. So don't expect some deep discount, but there is real room for negotiations for a fair price, repairs that make sense, contract conditions that can get the house to closing on reasonable terms. And that's where having a good realtor helps you think through those factors and get what's best for you and still realistic. What about sellers? What's it like for people selling their houses right now? Like I mentioned with buyers, there's a real factor of having to negotiate and reach terms that are reasonable for both sides of the transaction, so be prepared for that. But think about what you're willing to do and not willing to do. If something a buyer asks for sounds unreasonable, then ask your realtor what's normal in that situation and think through countering with something that is reasonable. This is a place where being able to lean on the professionals you hire to put in work on your behalf is important. Making sure that your house is presentable, both with professional pictures and marketing, something that we provide as part of our services, and decluttering your home to have it ready for showings, those things are going to be more important. Those things that make a good impression on potential buyers. Then as far as how long you can expect selling to take, a lot of that will depend on pricing. So the average home in DFW takes about 35 days to sell right now. But when you're priced right, that could be much less. I've still seen homes get offers in the first weekend, still when they're priced right and staged well. And then I've also seen sellers get overambitious and start too high, sit for a week or two, have to lower their price before they get offers. Now, these are factors that we would think through as we talk about your house, your selling goals, and come to a game plan together. That's the news on the ground. Give me a like if you found any of that helpful. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to leave those in the comments section below. I love to hear what you're thinking out there. All right, now it's time for our Nerd Corner. This is our statistics section where I give you some additional data on market trends to show you not only what's happening, but hopefully explain a little bit why things are happening in the real estate market. This week I wanted to address the topic of prices, and specifically this story that's out there that prices are falling. So here's a couple of news headlines from this past month. From CNN, home prices are finally falling, but how low will they go? From Fortune, Prices have plunged in 51 of these 60 cities, and there is much farther to fall. So the news has a narrative that prices are falling quickly, and that means the market will crash, and we can all watch with shock and horror, and their advertisers can sell us stuff while it happens. The news has a narrative, and it's not totally false, but it is selectively telling the story without the broader context. So a lot of people out there now have a warped idea that things are happening in and to the real estate market that aren't actually what they think. There's a couple things that are happening here that I think we should look at with a little suspicion. First, they're reporting on national trends and tend to focus on markets like LA, New York, San Francisco, Miami, these markets that are more of a luxury and extreme price point. So for one thing, they aren't always telling the story of what's happening to homes in a more normal price point or neighborhood for the DFW area. Second, they don't take into account other factors of how areas grow and change. So a city that has a lot of people moving away from it for one reason or another is not going to react to a recession the same way that a city that has an influx of population will react when it comes to market dynamics. Local markets are local. So yes, nationally we are seeing a trend of prices down from their peak in May, June, and July. Here's what they're really ignoring though. They're reporting on this as if the market doesn't do this every year. And that's what I'm going to talk about briefly today. Hey, did you know that in Dallas County in 2021, the average sales price of a home fell from over $492,000 in May of 2021 down to $427,000 in October of 2021. That's about a 13% drop in prices. But wait, that's 2021. Consider the peak of the hot market. Houses were selling in a weekend for over asking price at that point. That's October 2021, not October 2022. Hot market, not cooling market. Wait, what's going on here? I'm confused. So what you might not realize is that the real estate market moves in yearly cycles. It tends to rise through the spring, peak in summer, and fall a little bit in the fall and winter. That's normal. Look at this graph. I'll describe it too, since some people might be getting this in podcast form. I'll share a link to the video in the show notes and a link to the podcast in the video notes for anyone interested in either one. So what this graph shows is the average price of a home sold in Tarrant County and Dallas County over the last 10 years. So that covers the primary DFW area. The red line is Dallas, the blue line is Tarrant, so Fort Worth and Mid-Cities. What I want you to notice here is that the graph is not a straight line, but it does trend upward very obviously. I mean, the prices back in 2012, where it starts, are both under $200,000, and now both are over $400,000. But within each year, there's rise and fall. So if you were trying to buy a house in May and sell it in December of the same year and hoping to make a profit, first off, that's not how investing works and kind of insane to begin with, but you might see a price fall in that amount of time. I would never recommend that anyways, since the selling costs alone would make that not make sense for your return. That would make it unreasonable. But if you decide to buy a house 1 year and then 3 years later you change jobs and decide you want to move, cut down your commute, odds are you've gained some value. Here's the point. The market is a moving thing, not a straight line always headed up or down. But real estate reliably grows in value both with inflation, with the increased demand for areas and amenities. DFW is growing and is expected to keep growing as businesses and investments move here. So look, if you think you can time the market perfectly to maximize one thing or minimize another, maybe. That's fine if you want to try, but you're not guaranteed to see a real benefit from that, and honestly, it rarely works. But if you need a place to live and would rather be in a place that is gaining value over time instead of throwing money away on a landlord's mortgage payments, then as long as you're planning to be in the place for a couple of years, you should be fine. Like I said earlier, if the motivation is right and the money is right, then you're in a good place to buy a house or move. So if you want to be in a house or in a different house and you can afford the fixed monthly payments, something that's not hard to figure out with a lender, then it might be a good idea for you. And maybe a year or two from now, interest rates might fall and you can refinance into a more comfortable payment. Or if they stay the same or go up, if you're budgeting on what you can afford now, then you're okay because fixed rate payments don't go up. So here's the summary for Nerd Quarter. When you hear that prices are falling, ask whether that means month over month or year over year. Because it's normal for prices to rise and fall within a year. That doesn't mean they've fallen since this time last year. And when you're thinking of buying or selling a home, the most important thing to think about is what works for your budget in life, not what's trending in the news. Very rarely is it about timing the market. It's about what you can afford and when you need to or want to move. That's our Nerd Corner, our Stats Corner. Drop a like if you found any of that information helpful. That's all I got for you today for my monthly market update. Thanks so much for watching or listening. Make sure you subscribe to my channel to keep up with what's happening in the DFW real estate market. Get pro tips of things you should know when buying or selling a house and local highlights for the DFW area. Make sure you've liked this video, and if you found any of that helpful at all, if you have any questions, comments, or things you'd like to know more about, feel free to leave it in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Again, my name is Chase Hansen. I'm a realtor serving the greater DFW area. If you or anyone you know have any real estate needs, I'd love to be your go-to realtor in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. You can connect with me on Instagram at Hansen Realtors DFW. And if you have any real estate needs, you can always email me through the contact info in my profile. I would love to help you. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.